What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Victory Podcast. Guess what? The Victory Podcast is now brought to you by Team Builder. Team Builder provides strength and conditioning software to more than 500 high school football programs nationwide, as well as the NFL. So whether you write down your programs, have a full-time strength coach, or you need training programs, Team Builder can make your weight room more efficient, more accountable, and smarter when it comes to measuring your team's progress. So right now, Team Builder is offering a 10-week spread offense tempo training program when you start a 14-day free trial at teambuilder.com with the promo code VICTORY. So that's TeamBuilder, TeamBuilder, promo code VICTORY. And of course, you know that's spelled VIQTORY. Now, this week, we have on Beasley Reece. Beasley is the NFL Alumni CEO who also had a career from 1976 to 1984, I believe, playing in the NFL between the Cowboys, mostly with the Giants, and also a year and a half with the Buccaneers. So Beasley talks about his time playing, his incredible television career after his playing days, and how he has become the CEO at the NFL Alumni and what their initiatives are now and how even you can participate. So without any further ado, here's our conversation with Beasley Reece. Beasley, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to go over your career and what the NFL alumni are doing today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's always a lot of fun to talk about me. You know, it's a subject that I'm quite familiar with.
Good. Hope you're an expert on it.
So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Well, of course, we know that you are the CEO of the NFL Alumni, and that's an honor that was bestowed upon you. What was it, just December 2018?
That is correct. That is correct. It's been just about 6 months. Going great. A lot of great programs for former players. That's who we are. We are advocates for former NFL players, and our 30-plus chapters raise money for children's charities. On average, annually, we raise about $1.5 million that goes to grassroots children's charities, and I'm very proud of that and proud of the guys.
Yeah, that's amazing. But I wanted to know, how does one get the information that they're about to become CEO? Is that a phone call? Is that an in-person type of communication? How did you find out?
Well, I was we grow pretty much internally at the alumni. So I've been a member since the 1980s. I was a chapter president for many years in Philadelphia. So they judge the success of your chapter, puts you at a certain level. And then I was a member of the board of directors for many years, working on various committees. And then the phone call came. I was at my house in Texas, and the board, it was an emergency board meeting, so to speak. We decided to move in another direction, and they asked me if I would take it on for a while. And I was very successfully retired. I mean, there's people that say, "Oh, you can't retire. Oh, you're going to get bored. Or you're going to want another job." No, I was extremely good at retirement. Man, I was good. But I must have been started like a year and a half of retirement from my television career. And I must have been getting a little antsy because I too quickly said yes. And we just had our Super Bowl of golf in Pinehurst at Pinehurst Resort. And at that gathering, the board asked me to be the permanent CEO. And once again, I shocked myself by saying yes. So I'm in it for the long haul.
Retirement couldn't have been too good then.
Yeah, listen, not that long. I mean, I'm 65 years old, so I say long haul is like another 6 months.
Now, if you were the head of the Philadelphia area NFL Alumni Chapter, that, of course, means that you are, in fact, an NFL alumni. It's a fair assumption. So what I wanted to do is sort of walk this back. Now, of course, we know now where you are, but can you take us back? You walk on to North Texas, coming out of Waco, where you played high school football, and it looked like your junior year, senior year, you were playing defense, but you get drafted in the 9th round, which thankfully back then there was a 9th round, because today there's only 7. Tell me what that experience was like for you. Did you have any expectations of making it into the NFL?
Well, I no. I went to college as a journalism major and a music minor, and was messing around like college kids do, throwing a frisbee, throwing a football. And one of the members of the football team saw me make a couple of catches and asked me, I'm 6'2", 190 pounds, walk around on campus and kept making these diving catches and one hand catches. And so the guy, his name is Hurlis Scales. He was drafted, and I believe he played for the Green Bay Packers from North Texas. But he walked over to me and said, "Man, why don't you try out for our football team?" And I didn't pay much attention to it, but I guess it stuck in my head. And I went and talked to the head coach, and he told me, come out in the spring and we'll see. And so I came out in the spring. I ran a 40-yard dash, and on the spot, I was given a full athletic scholarship. I don't know what I ran. People keep, I've told this story before, and people say, "Well, my God, what did you run?" I don't know what it was, but it had to be off the charts. And so they
Had to be pretty good.
Yeah, they had to check my SAT scores and my high school, because they figured there had to be something wrong. There had to be something very wrong for me not to have been recruited by anybody. But that part's a long story. It was during integration. They brought the black school and the white school together, and that threw us into 5A in Texas, and 5A in Texas will beat a lot of small colleges. And then the powers that be on both sides figured out a way to disintegrate us the next year. And that left us in a 5A conference. You had to stay in you had to stay in 2 years before you could drop back down. So that left us in this gigantic conference I graduated with 57 kids in my class. That's how small the school was without the other school, together. So we played JV teams. We couldn't play a full high school team in 5A. So we'd play their JV, and I just didn't have, my stats were fantastic. I just didn't have the credibility because I was a senior in high school running the football against JV students. So
Right.
That's the reason I didn't get recruited. But it all went well. Hayden Fry became the head coach of University of North Texas, and you mentioned that I played with and came across some incredible individuals. Hayden Fry is one of the greatest college coaches in the history of the sport, and he ended up being my coach and gave me a major opportunity.
Yeah, right. And I mean, that opportunity, of course, pays enormous dividends. You do, as I had mentioned, get drafted by the Cowboys, and you get drafted as an athlete. So even they probably saw some of the same things that North Texas saw, where there's just this real athletic talent. We're not really quite sure how it's going to work. So they tried you at wide receiver. What was that like for you jumping over there?
Well, what they wanted was they wanted 6'2", 200 pounds. And so that was just better than prototypical for a wide receiver or a defensive safety. So it was not fun, to be honest with you. It was a great football team. The Cowboys had just lost to Pittsburgh in the 1975 season Super Bowl. Lynn Swann, a great multi-year All-Pro, Hall of Fame level talent, had jumped all over the Cowboys defensive back. So they drafted 5 or 6 cornerbacks and drafted me as in that crop. And so North Texas, my school, is only about 40 minutes from where the Cowboys train in Dallas. It's basically a Dallas school. So I started driving to work out at the Cowboys facility immediately. Roger Staubach, it's not like today where guys worked out all year round and, you know, at the training facility. It was only Roger. Roger Staubach is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Went to the Naval Academy. He's Captain America in my mind, the greatest man that I know. And so he worked out every day because that's what Roger Staubach would do. And so I would drive up there, and Roger would make me run patterns to, you know, make me catch his balls. And Tom Landry, the head coach, which is another amazing character that I went across, would watch Roger work out, and he saw me making these crazy catches. And that's how I got moved to wide receiver. I was still a cornerback all through training camp, but the last week, they knew they wanted to keep me. A wide receiver got hurt, and they put me over there to kind of hide me till the future. And that's how I got in the league.
Yeah. And I mean, for you to go in that way with Tom Landry, Rogers throwing you balls, Drew Pearson's so a wide receiver ahead of you, you know, Rayfield Wright's on this team. I mean, Mel Renfro on defense. I mean, unbelievable.
It's hard to imagine. So I'm playing with Too Tall Jones.
That's right.
Tom Hollywood Henderson, Randy White. You know, these guys are just NFL legends. I didn't even know if I should walk in the door when the veterans all showed up. But so it's impossible, even though I've spent my life crafting words, it's impossible to describe what it was like to make that team. First of all, it's a Super Bowl team. Remember, it's the second best team in the league, and yet I still made the team. And to be around the characters, the names of those. So on that coaching staff, get this: Mike Ditka was the special teams coach. Dan Reeves. These are Super Bowl winning coaches. These are guys who went on to win Super Bowls as coaches. Dan Reeves was my wide receiver coach, my personal coach. And it just goes on to names that you know, people may not know, but these guys were just incredible names in the NFL. And to be around them was amazing.
I can only imagine. But we do know in hindsight that the wide receiver experiment is more of a blip on the radar for you when you look at the body of your NFL career, because, you know, what is it, just 2 seasons in Dallas before you go to the Giants?
No, it was 1 season, and it was very frustrating because basically everybody knew me as the speed guy. So when Tom Landry would send me in the game as the third wide receiver, the DBs on the other team would start saying, okay, here comes the speed guy, the speed guy. And so I would just fly through the zone. And Drew Pearson and Golden Richards and Butch Johnson would break underneath me and make all the catches. So it was just, you know, they weren't throwing me the ball. I was just a decoy and very frustrated. So the next training camp, I asked Coach Landry to move me back to defense, where I felt like I was the best corner on their team. And he wanted me to stay at wide receiver because he wanted to clear out the zones, you know, with the speed guy. And So that's really how I got out of Dallas. I mean, it was really more me demanding to be a cornerback or defensive back, and Coach Landry wanted me to play wide receiver, and I just knew that wasn't going to go well. So I ended up going to the Giants and had a long, great career there, and another cast of characters that I can't. It's like I'm lying. It's like I'm lying to you right now. My personal coach was Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick of the Patriots was my personal coach. We're darn good buddies. Bill Parcells was my head coach. I mean, I played with and played for guys on that Giants roster, and doing, two Hall of Famers were in front of me, Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson. So I was just a skinny guy talking trash with nothing to do. Because if they got by Harry Carson and Lawrence Taylor, it was like I was cussing. What the hell? How did you guys let him back here? It was just amazing. Just a lot of fun.
And I noticed too, not to drop even more names, but one of the assistants when you first got to the Giants is Marty Schottenheimer, and Larry Sonka's on the roster.
Marty Schottenheimer was my defensive coordinator. It's crazy. I'm telling you, it just never ended. Romeo Crennel ended up being NFL head coach, and he was the defensive line coach on that staff. So it was just an amazing time. It was a different brand of football, so it was very dangerous. I remember when I was finally cut and knew that I wasn't coming back, exhaling, because I played in an era where guys got seriously messed up. I mean, paralyzed. Darryl Stingley got paralyzed. Guys with just legs, and it just, it was a war game when I played it. It was a vicious. The aim was to knock the other guy out.
Oh, sure.
I can't tell you how many TVs and gift certificates, I got as bounty for having the big hit of the game, or the, one of the big plays. It was a crazy time. These guys are much safer, and the rules changes have been fantastic, and I'm glad they are changing the rules, because we went to war every Sunday.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anyone that watches a game from that era, just a highlight film for that era, it looks a little bit different than what you see today. Back then it's all about the hits as opposed to, the spectacular catches that sort of dominate today's highlights. But, with that being said, does the NFL alumni look at trying to help mold the game to make it safer, or are you strictly focused on the guys that survive those, war, so to speak, and doing what they can to help them? Do you ever cross that line of, your thoughts on how the game is played and trying to move that in any direction?
No, we don't have to worry about that, because money, insurance, the cost of insurance, the cost of litigation takes care of that for us. The NFL is so worried about litigation, the reputation of the sport when it comes to concussions, and the results that former players are living through. The money takes care of that. The league is changing the rules for one reason and one reason only. It is not for the safety of the players, it is because they cannot afford the medical cost, the trauma that is the result of some of the old ways of playing the game. So the game is safer. You can't launch and hit a guy. Quarterbacks are protected, because they are standing there, in a pocket with people coming at them from everywhere. So the game has changed for the better. But the reason that it's changed is not because of the Players Association or the Alumni Association. It is changed because of litigation. The league just had to put up $1 billion into a fund just to take care of guys that are struggling with concussion type issues.
Right. And is that something that's of major importance for the alumni, is helping guys with medical type issues, if it's concussion related or not?
That's all I do. All I do all day, every day is advocate mostly medically for former players. So we have 62 different offerings and benefits, I'll call them. And most of them are medical based. Uh, Top doctor on demand, lab core. Our players get free blood tests, um, knee and hip replacements. That might cost $60,000 to $80,000. Our players pay $10,000, $11,000 because of various things we've negotiated. Deborah Heart and Lung Hospital is providing free service to our players for heart, lung, sleep apnea, which is another major problem that we have, related issues. So every day I'm looking for somebody to help us. And if it's not my group, if it's not the alumni, it's one of the other 10 or so groups that are out there advocating for players, providing things like dental and vision. And so right now we have a patchwork medical coverage for players, but it really shouldn't be that way. And hopefully this next collective bargaining agreement, the NFL will step up and cover guys who worked in an industry where the stat is unquestionable. If you play, you're going to get hurt. It's 100% injury, 100%. You're going to have a knee operation, a back operation, a concussion, broken fingers. You are going to get hurt in our profession. And, I hear people say, well, they know that when they sign up. Yeah, we know that when we sign up. But just like anybody else's company, if you went to work for that company, they would cover you if there was an injury, and the NFL needs to do that as well.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like the needle is the pendulum rather has really swung that way as time's gone on, and it's I think the concussions were the tip of the iceberg, and as we the public has sort of opened their eyes to that. I think that the sentiment's grown, and hopefully I, as a bystander, I can see more and more progress towards actually getting that, because the guys that played, I mean, better than me for sure. The guys that played in the 60s, 70s, 80s certainly did not make as much money. The game was much more, the injuries, the hits, it was just a different game. And the combination of those two put those guys in a completely different group than the guys that are playing today that have these $60+ million deals, that have all these rules in place. I mean, it just feels like the human thing to do to sort of bridge that gap, to help these older former players deal with medical ramifications from their career. It just feels like a no-brainer.
Now, let me be fair to the NFL. Of that 10 or so groups that I mentioned that have all these various programs to help players, the NFL is a major player in that. So they have and continue to provide many benefits for former players, medical benefits that we have access to. So they are one of the groups that are participating, but hopefully they take that next step and provide coverage that we can buy into. I'm not asking for anything for free, but subsidize it to the point where a guy that made $25,000 when he was a player in the 60s, and then went on and worked for some company and owned a bit, whatever he did for a living. But make it affordable for that guy to have medical coverage.
Absolutely. I want to get into a little more detail about the NFL alumni, but I did want to just circle back because I feel like lost in this football talk, we can lose an entire aspect of your life because once you retired, I believe maybe it was a couple years later, maybe it was just the next year that you became a sports anchor, and it launched this incredible career that you had as a sports anchor and then a sports director. I mean, you were huge in broadcasting. So I did want to ask, how did you, as a former player, with all the experiences that you have, sort of use the skill set that you built, decide what to do next, and then execute it at the highest level? I mean, you didn't. It's worth noting that you didn't just become a sports anchor. I have here 1992 Olympic Summer Games. You were a commentator in Barcelona. I mean, you worked for different boxing, and you just grew into the highest levels that you can as someone that's commentating on the game. And I know that sort of falls in line with maybe what you had studied at school. But how did that all come to be? And what could you attribute football and a sports background to helping you achieve that level of success?
Well, one thing that young people need to know is I did not consider myself an island waiting to be discovered. I told everybody who would listen while I was playing that that's what I wanted to do. When I was a kid watching Tom Brokaw and these guys broadcast from Vietnam or wherever they were all over the world, that's when I fell in love with it and decided that I wanted to be a foreign correspondent. Now, football limited those opportunities because everybody wanted me to talk about sports. So that's how I fell in love with it. And I told everybody, I told the reporters, I told the producers, if I was doing an interview at a TV station, I met the news director, told the news director, this is what I'd like to do one day. How can you advise me? So I told people, I tell young people all the time, don't be waiting around. Don't be waiting to be discovered. They'll say, I want to do this or that for a living. And I will say, well, what are you doing every day toward that end? And most of them don't have an answer.
Waiting for a handout. They just want a handout.
Hoping to be discovered. So don't wait around. I didn't wait around. And immediately I was cut from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the TV station that had the contract for the coaches show immediately grabbed me. And I was standing outside of a mall and they tossed it to me. And I say, yeah, I got a bunch of Bucs fans here. And so what do you think about the game coming up? Give them the mic. And so just little stuff like that just always allowed me opportunities that came to me. And I just think it's important that people take steps, do their part, let people know what you want to do. And it worked for me. And so from there, I became a sports anchor at that stage. And basically that was weird. A lot of things happened out. I had a guy, the sports director at that station hadn't had a vacation in a long time. And so he went on vacation, went to San Diego to see his grandkids. He called back in a week and said, how's Beasley doing? They said, oh, Beasley's doing fine. Everything's good here. He said, okay, well, I'm going to stay another 2 weeks. I'm seeing my grandkids. And then he called back 2 weeks later and said, I retired. And they said, what? And they gave me the job. And so, right place, right time, yet prepared to take advantage of the opportunity. And that's really how my sports broadcasting career was launched.
And I think I've heard a definition of luck being preparation meets opportunity. So
Absolutely.
it's nothing more than that. You know, it's preparation. The opportunity came, right place, right time, like you said. But that's awesome. And isn't that just life? You know, just having those little things here and there sort of break for you, and that sort of determines your path.
That is so true. And you can't, you know, and I've had a lot of opportunities that I wasn't prepared for, and I didn't get, and that's life too. You know, there's good breaks and bad breaks, but all in all, as I look back over my career, I don't think I would make a single adjustment. You know, I'm very happy with the way things turned out, and like I said, I'll sit in this chair in this office for another 6 months to a year, and then go back to my lake house in Texas.
Well, lastly, Beasley, I want to just have out there for our listeners, you know, the NFL alumni has levels of membership, but you don't have to be an actual former NFL player to, you know, be aware to participate. So what's a last message that you could give for any of our listeners about what the NFL is actively working on and what anyone can do to be involved?
Well, we have several categories of membership. One of our uh, more popular categories is an associate membership, and it's basically a networking opportunity. I see the NFL alumni as a marketing company. So we sign agreements with top companies, and we help them sell their goods or sell their service um, through email, e-blast to our membership, to positions on our website. We have various way, you know, all of our members get a new member packet when they renew each year. And inside of that, we put the pamphlets, the sales pamphlets of our partners. So if you want to network and market your goods, you can join your local chapter of the NFL alumni as an associate, with, which means you're on the list. So you go to the meetings, you help them out. You know, you have a profession that's probably very different from some of their experiences. So, you know, you may be asked to be on the board and help these guys make various decisions, help them decide what children's charity to support, help them with their golf tournament. If you're a golfer, it's a great place to be. But if you're selling something, whatever it is, cars, insurance, whatever widget or service you are selling, joining as an associate member, it's like joining a networking uh, business networking club, and that's what we do. So we advocate for former players. The chapter's main effort is to raise charity dollars. So when you join a local chapter, you are basically getting involved with the charity, picking some great children's initiatives. Some of them just make you cry after you help these kids out. And we have a lot of fun. It's a bunch of great guys, and we have awesome associates that help us out.
That's awesome. And just to be clear, where should everyone go to get this information and to learn more about it?
Go to NFLalumni.org. So NFLalumni.org, and you can identify your local chapter and get the information how to join. And you know, we need help because kids need help. And as far as the uh, advocating for former players, you know, the major corporations, the NFL, we have other entities that help us with that.
Got it. And just so everyone knows too, you can find Beasley on Twitter. I was checking out some of the tweets before we jumped on today. You're very active on Twitter. So that's at Beasley Reece, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, correct. And listen, I really appreciate you giving the alumni the time to talk about what we do. We change lives. I'm telling you, I cheerleaders are a big part of our membership as well. Former NFL cheerleaders, and they help us with in our chapters and our best members actually. And so the cheerleaders came to me when I was in Philly, and they wanted me to write a check to this little group. It was called Work to Ride or something like that. And so these little inner city kids were cleaning out horse stalls, learning how to ride and play polo. And I'm like, oh, these girls, this foo-foo fancy little charity. Okay. And I'm breaking up. I'm about to start crying right now. Those inner city kids out of tough neighborhood Philadelphia won the national championship in polo. And I cry to this day, thinking about what that little check, did to help those kids follow their dreams. And all of those kids are at major universities, playing polo.
That's amazing.
It's crazy. But I've got 100 stories like that of lives being changed by our local chapters. And I'm so proud of the chapter presidents.
I can only imagine how many stories you have. We'll have to do this again so we can get more of them out there, and hopefully, we can help the NFL alumni with any of their initiatives. Because from where I'm sitting, it's an honor to help get that message out there, and anything we can do, you have my word that we're on board.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Good talking to you. Let's do it again sometime.